Hello! So today we're going to do an interesting project, and we are going to be printing using foam plates, and we are going to be making pictures like these, pictures of leaves. Now, in your art packet you were sent 2 foam plates. You're going to need just one of these. You're going to need a leaf to trace around. Okay, now it could be a leaf from your garden. It could be a leaf that you picked up, right? I found this oak leaf right outside of my door. I got these from my yard. Or if you don't have a leaf, or you can't be bothered to go out and get a leaf, you can draw a leaf. So it doesn't really matter, but I like to draw around a leaf because it looks better. So you've got your foam plate, you've got your leaf. You're going to need a pencil. Okay. Probably one that's a little bit sharper than that, actually. Here we go. Sharp pencil with an eraser. And you are definitely going to need some markers. Okay, so I have a bunch of markers here. You also got some markers in your art packet. But any markers that you might have at home, they need to be water-soluble ones. So Sharpies will not work. Okay, you have to have the water-soluble Crayola markers. All right, and that's important for later on. Okay, so your first step is you're going to need a sheet of blank white paper and your foam plate. Okay, now the first thing that I'm going to do is actually just draw a line. I'm going to put my foam plate down in the corner here. And I'm going to draw a line around it, just around the edge, just so that I know how big it is. Okay, this is just going to be my template. I'm going to put my foam plate to one side now. Now, around my leaf, I got a couple of different leaves because I wasn't sure how big they were going to be. Oh, you see this? I know my foam plate is this big, that's why I drew around it. This leaf is too big. It's going off the edges there. Let me see. I got a slightly smaller one here. Yeah, it might just work. It's still kind of going off the edges. Maybe I'll stick with that oak leaf. Yep, that's going to work. That's fitting in just nicely. It's not going to go off the edges. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is trace my leaf. Okay, so you can see I've traced my leaf there. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. You can see that in a couple of places I didn't quite get to the very tips of the leaf. That's okay. I'm going to fill those in now. And this is just a tracing to allow us to transfer the shape onto our foam plate. That's all we're doing with this. So the reason that we drew around the foam plate in the first place is so that we knew how big it was. And now we're making this shape so that we can transfer it onto the foam plate. Okay, that looks pretty good. So there's my leaf, there's my tracing. Now I'm going to get my foam plate. I'm going to put my paper right over the top of my foam plate, and you can kind of see the foam plate there underneath. I'm going to line it up with the edges that I drew on. So I know that my plate is right in the middle. Okay, so this is where having that sharp pencil is going to be useful, because what we're going to do now is trace this leaf. I'm going to draw straight over the top of it, and I'm pushing down quite hard. And I'm doing that because I want to make a mark on the foam plate. So if I push down quite hard and I make quite a thick black line here, when I lift it up underneath, I don't know if you can really see that, there's a line there. So I'm going to trace all the way around the edge of my leaf, just pushing down firmly. Take your time because you want your leaf to look really good. Okay, if you go too fast and the paper moves while you're tracing it, it won't look very good. I'm tracing here, up there. And I felt that my pencil kind of skipped over the foam there, so I've gone back. The other thing that's happening is my paper is actually ripping. As I'm pushing through to the foam plate, I'm getting a little rip there. That's okay, because we're not going to use the paper again for anything, but just be careful not to rip the whole thing as you're doing it. So I'm making this nice leaf shape. I didn't quite follow the line there. That's okay. No one will know when I've drawn my tracing leaf here that the original was slightly different. I really like oak leaves for this because we have them all over the place up here. And I think they have this beautiful shape. I like these little points that they have there. But you could use any leaf you want, provided it has quite a lot of area inside of it. Because when we're making our print, we want to be able to add some detail and we want to add some color there. So you want a leaf that has a good amount of space inside of it, okay? So for instance, pine needles would not work. Or very, very skinny leaves would not work. There we go. Now I've finished drawing my leaf. So lift that off. Now you can see there. And there's the shape of my leaf. Now the other thing I did on here, I don't know if you can see it, I added a signature. Actually, I added my initials, which are JLP. It didn't come out very clearly. But if you wanted to do that, here's what you can do. Here's my initials. I'm going to write just up here. JLP. Now, if I put that onto my plate like this, it'll come out backwards when I print it. So I have to flip it over. I can just about see my initials through the paper. You probably can't see them, but I'm going to trace them. J, L, P. And there they are on my plate. So now when I print that, my initials will come out the right way around and it will be like my signature on it. Okay. The other way that you can do this, if you don't want to trace around the leaf, and it can be a little tricky, is you would start the same way, right? You would draw around your plate so that you know how big it is. And then you could just draw your own leaf. You want to make it so that it takes up a reasonable amount of the space. So I might draw a line like this. Like that, right? It's a simple leaf. It doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't need to be like the oak leaf. It can be just a quick and easy one. That's fine. So if you wanted to do that, you can totally do that, or you can draw around your, trace around a leaf that you find outside. Okay. So now our next step is to add in the veins of the leaf. Okay, so you can see here, the veins of the leaf go from the central vein that goes up the middle out to the edges of the leaf. Right there and there and there. So I didn't bother tracing this because that's quite tricky. I'm just going to draw them in freehand. So I'm going to start up at the top of my leaf. The central vein goes from the stem all the way to the tip of your leaf. Like on this one here, goes from the stem to the tip. And on my oak leaf here, you can see on the original there, it goes from the stem all the way up to the tip. So I'm going to draw that in. And I'm just pressing down with my pencil fairly firmly onto the leaf. And then I'm going to draw from the central vein out to the tips of these, the technical word for these are called lobes, right? These are the lobes of the leaf. So I'm going to go out here. I'm going to go out here. And maybe one more there. I'm going to draw one here and another one there. And my last one is going to be here, there. So now I have my veins in, okay? Now the next step, if you can see on this print that I made previously, is I actually decorated my leaf with different line patterns. And this is the plate that I drew. This is what I actually printed it from. So you can see I did lots of different patterns. I have just some straight lines, I have some dots, some curvy lines, zigzag lines, circles, triangles and squares, more straight lines. So you can fill in the spaces with whatever design you want. Don't make it too complicated because then it doesn't print out very well. So it needs to be quite a simple design. If you wanted to, you could just do straight lines or just dots, but I think it looks nice with all of these different patterns in there so that you can get something that looks like this. Okay, so I'm going to fill in my my leaf pattern here. I quite like doing some straight lines like this. This is where having that sharp pencil comes in really useful. You need a sharp pencil to be able to push down. If your pencil is too blunt, then it will make much thicker lines in the foam and it won't look as good. If you have a sharp pencil, it makes thinner lines in the foam and the print looks way better. So I'm going to fast forward this and meet you at the end. Okay, so you can see that I've finished now. I chose to do a few different ones. I did some little spirals there, I did some zigzags, I did some wavy lines and circles, and whatever you can think of, okay? Any design of line. If you look up something called Zentangles online, get an adult to Google it, I'll write it down. Zentangles. And you'll see a lot of people have posted pictures that are called Zentangles online, and that's all different kinds of lines, just like this. Lots and lots of different designs. So you could look that up and see what you can find, give yourself some inspiration. All right, so our printing plate is finished. That's all we had to do. That was quick, right? Now comes the fun part. Now we get to color it in. Okay, so on my original picture, I did 2 different prints, right? So I'm going to use a piece of regular letter paper, plain paper, but because my plate is relatively small, I can fit it on twice. So we're going to do 2 different prints. You could choose to do it in maybe spring colors and autumn colors, right? So you could have one where your leaf is green and another where your leaf is different colors of yellows and browns and oranges. You could make them like here. First I just colored in my leaf all one color, and then I chose to do it lots of different colors because I thought that looked really great. However you want to do it. Once you've made your plate, you can actually make lots of different prints from it. So the next stage is to pick some colors out that you want to use. So here's mine. Let's see. I think I'm going to do reds and oranges and yellows since it's a fall kind of season right now. Maybe I'll make the background green though, because I quite like the green. You don't even have to make these realistic colors, right? You can make your leaf purple and pink if you really wanted to. Let's see, what else do I have here? Oh, there's another orange. Okay, so I'm going to color in the different sections of my leaf different colors. But if you wanted to, you can just color it in all one color. So when you start coloring, this is foam. It's sort of like plastic, right? It's not going to absorb the marker very well. So the marker is going to stay there, but it's not going to look very dark. That's okay. All we want is to get some ink onto our printing plate. So I've colored in one bit. Now I'm going to color in the next section. So the only thing is that don't go out of the lines, but if you do go out of the lines, here's the cool thing, you can just kind of wipe it off with your finger because it doesn't really stick there. Okay, yellow, let's try another orange here. Yeah, that looks great. Like this, well, I'm going to use a brown as well. I like some browns in here. Here, oh, it's kind of the same as the other one. Another pale orange. So it doesn't take long to colour these in. And then let's see, a little red down here maybe. Okay, and then on the stem, there's just barely a little bit in the middle. I'm going to colour it in. I'm not sure that's actually going to print. Okay, so now I've coloured in my leaf. Now I've got to colour in the outside, okay? So I am going to fast forward my video and see you at the end. Okay, so our next step, now that we've coloured in the whole of the background, is to get a clean white sheet of paper. Okay, and we're going to print this onto here, but because it took me a while to colour this in, the ink is actually kind of dried onto my plate now. So even if I flipped it over and tried to print it, most of it would still stay on the sheet. So here's what we're going to do, and this is why it's important to use water soluble or washable markers. Okay, I've got a piece of kitchen roll. Okay, you could just use a clean piece of cloth, anything you wanted, or some tissues. Kitchen roll works really well. And I'm dipping it into some water. I do not want it too wet. I don't want to make my paper very wet, so I'm going to squeeze out any extra water that gets in there. Okay, so now it's just kind of damp. It's in a big bundle, so I'm going to unpeel it. This is why kitchen roll works well, because it doesn't fall apart. And now what I've got, oh see, I've got drips on my paper. Don't do it over the top of your paper because you don't really want drips. I'm going to get a fresh piece of paper. Here we go. Okay, so I've got a fresh piece of paper. I've got my just damp cloth, right? It should not be dripping at all. And what I'm going to do is gently press on my white paper with my slightly damp kitchen roll. And this is just making my white paper just a little bit damp. Okay, I don't want it to be too damp because when I transfer the ink, if it's really damp and wet, the ink will just spread out and it won't make your print look very good. The ink will spread and it won't look sharp. So I have dabbed it all over there. You can see that it's sort of going slightly translucent in places, but it's not super wet, right? Now I'm ready to print. Okay, here's my plate. I'm going to flip it over, I'm going to put it down. And now it's really important that I keep it very still with one hand. And I'm going to use my other hand to rub hard and press down. I'm going to make sure I get up all the way to the edges there. And underneath here, the ink is hopefully being dissolved by the water in the paper. And it is transferring over. So I'm making sure that I rub over my leaf with my finger. I'm going to rub over here, push down. Hopefully that'll work. Okay, here's the exciting bit. Let's see if it worked. Whoa, that looked really great, right? You can kind of see a couple of places it didn't transfer perfectly. That's okay. This is a one-of-a-kind original artwork, and there will never be another one that is exactly the same as this one. So, and you can see that's the case on here, right? You get little patches sometimes where it didn't transfer perfectly, but I think that looks really great. Now, the exciting thing about this is that, of course, you have space right here next to your first print to do another one. So you can color it in the same way. You could color it in differently. You can do it like I did. I did one that was multicolored. I did one that was just one color. I like this one because this one really pops with that sort of bluey green background. It's easy to reuse your plate. Here, I'm going to show you how to do it now. Put that to the side. Here's a bowl of water. You can just run it under the tap, but I'm going to use my bowl of water since it's here. And I'm just going to give it a quick wash. All right? Be easy with your plate because they're thin and they can snap or crumple easily. But you can see the ink just comes straight off. That's why we use the water-soluble ones. Just like that. So that's now nice and clean. I would dry that off and then you would colour all over it again with your markers and make another print. Now, I'm looking forward to seeing what leaves you come up with. With your spare plate, if you wanted to, you could try doing another leaf. Right, you could try doing a different kind of leaf. You could draw your own leaf, or you could do something like just use the plate without making a leaf shape. and draw lots of different lines on there, right? If you look up Zentangles, you can find lots of different shapes of lines. And you could just do a really interesting pattern with waves and straight lines and dots and squares and zigzags and things like that. And you can print that the same way. So with your second plate, you could totally experiment and see what you can come up with. That's always fun as well. All right, I hope you enjoyed that. Bye.